of high virulence with no known treatment or cure. However, it wasn't a real BO4 lab as a national standard would order, because that would have to be a separate cabinet lab. We were brought in past the decon from the 2 lab into the cabinet lab suit-up area to be essentially moon-suited, but not like what I ended up having to have for the clean sphere. But we looked up above the door, and moving from 2 to 3, it didn't say from 2 to 3. It said 3 to 4. They were kind of, how should I say, staggered. It said pretend. There is a sign above the door that says pretend. Pretend you're in a biological 4 lab. Pretend you've just walked across a gantry, because there was no room for it in the facility. And in fact, the clean sphere area, well, the ambassador suite below the clean sphere was built early for biocontainment, and then the area above it was dug out, and the slant elevator was put in to bring us back in case they had the defensive biowarfare people brought into the laboratories while we were down in the clean sphere area. We were then brought in a separate elevator facility that was dug under the floor between 3 and 4 to be brought back to the elevator and re-engineered in so that we could be brought up to 3 and avoid having to walk back through the 3 plus, the 2, the 1, and the wet lab.
Let me ask you about this realization that you're working with samples from a live, did they say it was a live extraterrestrial being?
Yes, sir.
In your going through these documents, was it revealed that this being came to Earth as a result of a crash in Kingman, Arizona?
We didn't read that per se to start with. Mm-hmm. Yes, his date of origin on a jump was to 1953 Kingman. He was part of a 3-person crew. One died, the other one was taken to Los Alamos. That one subsequently met Mr. Uhouse. That person, that J-Rod as he was known, was a P+45. The J-Rod with whom I was privileged to associate was a P+52, who was actually a diplomat and a spy, which is why he was originally put under guard and treated extremely poorly, including intumescing him, firing pressure on him to gain pain compliance on him, which is why he originally introduced himself to me as captive.
Now, this is something that you're continuing to work on. You have these samples, mm-hmm. and you're dealing with retroviruses, and you're trying to help him with his neuropathy. Is this how it progressed from that point on?
Well, I wasn't dealing with retroviruses at the time. We were just attempting to de-differentiate the cells mm-hmm. and get them to re-differentiate into a normal microglial cell.
Because
he had
suffering a degenerative.
Yeah, it was a CIDP like chronic immune demyelinating polyneuropathy like degenerative disorder that was mixed in with other things, things like an MGUS, which is a monoclonal gammopathy of uncertain significance, and a bunch of other technical stuff, but he had Wallerian degeneration. In other words, it was a polyneuropathy, it was a peripheral neuropathy degeneration, which caused him extreme pain, and it also caused a reduction in his produced AFGPs, which were antifreeze type glycoproteins. This is why I was brought in. The training that I received after being first associated with them in 1986, the training that I received at SUNY, and I understand I've got a legal consideration here, the training that I received at...
When you say training, you're talking about your PhD?
Yes, sir.
Which you did receive at SUNY University?
Yes, sir, that's mm-hmm. true.
Mm-hmm.
It was underfunded. It was paid by Dr. Teller. He was involved with the committee of the majority.
Who was your advisor during that time?
Am I legally able to say that? I can say his first name is Bill, his last name begins with an L, and he receives $256,000 a year in stipends. and he was also made a fellow of the National Academy of Sciences. He's an expert in glycoprotein, and if anybody does any research from there, they can find it. I have with me a legal agreement that I will show you, but it cannot be shared with the public. The reason why it cannot be shared with the public is that in that legal agreement it says I will not share it with the public. Would you like to see it?
Now that we're on the subject, sure. Yeah.
right.
Because this is a point where I know has generated a lot of talk on the internet, and it has been something that has been kicked around. It has gone through various stages of documentation.
I'm the one that's been kicked around.
Well, you're the only one that has come forward on this. So yeah, right now
Well,
you are taking all of the
That's the way-
limelight and everything else. That
Yeah,
goes
and
along with it.
every lovely thing that comes along with it. That's just the way it goes, I guess. Truth is truth. People can either deal with it or not. It's their choice. You're welcome to sit there and read it, but please do not read it aloud. You'll see that it's a legal.
Tell me in essence, so that the people listening, give them a nutshell of what I'm actually looking at.
You're looking at a private agreement between myself, a third party, a legal agreement with a third party,
Right.
and a certain university.
Yeah.
I'm allowed to say that, yes? All right. That legal agreement says that my status shall be restored insofar as it is necessary to be restored for business and professional reasons. However, I'm to hold harmless that certain university who was caught lying. I sent a buddy of mine to the Eastern Seaboard who got somebody on tape because I was tired of being bashed around too. And as a result of getting that person on tape, somebody else stepped in, and you may note the name on the bottom of that privately to yourself. All right. But in any case, there's a legal agreement in place where, for professional reasons, in other words, I have a key turn now where my background has been substantiated so that I'm able to do business in the biotech field, in industry, which is where it's important. It's not important when I go home and go to sleep at night. The doctorate isn't. It's only important insofar as what I can do to help people with it. So I had to do something. So I took that as that was an independent action. And the guy who got it is the one who on our forum calls himself Mongrel. He is our chief of security, and he private now. It's not group associated. As a result, these are all things that can't be. I can indicate what they're looking at. That sheepskin was provided. It is. I can say that it is a group out of France who entered into third-party negotiations for us. Thank you. And they are distantly associated with the Catholic Church. Following that association, we came to meet people who were associated with this gentleman, that face you knew, and this is the gentleman with whom we are directly associated for the biomedical concern. And as a result, this appointment occurred to the biomedical concern, making me a vice president and also to serve at his pleasure as a science advisor.
Now, this is an international company?
Yes, sir.
And you can't say their name?
No, sir.
Okay. Well,
Let me tell you why. Let me
Okay.
tell you why I don't. Marcia and I are part of a group who, because of my background mostly, the weird nerdy background involving biology, we work very quietly for the company. I can say that we're involved in vaccines research, attempting to better a vaccine against a certain type of carcinoma. And I'm also allowed to say that we're deeply involved in biophotonics work.
Biophotons.
Yes, sir.
Well, it's my understanding that the human body actually does give off a very, very small amount of light.
Well, it depends on the stimulation of the body.
And the most of it
several
occurs...
counts per second per square centimeter in around a 200 to 800 nanometer range. Permanently, we give this light off, yes.
And most of it happens at our fingertips.
A lot of it does. There is extra discharge.
Extra.
But actually, all cells give off light.
We're going to get into that, but first let's cover the area of the J-rod. You talked about it, and I have a slide showing a drawing of J-rod. Was this by your hand, or?
Any image, well, let me see it if you please first. Yeah, that's by my...
That's by your own hand. Tell us about the first time that you encountered this live extraterrestrial being, because this is something that is at the center of how things evolved from that point on.
Encountered meaning seeing, or encountered meaning...
Well, let's talk about the time you suited up and you were
the first time after
where they were taking samples.
Okay.
Yeah.
The first time I was on Team 1 and brought in, of course, we were briefed as to what protocols I was supposed to follow upon entry. After being put in the gantry, I was wheeled up to the clean sphere, and then the pressurization was increased in the gantry for the handover into the clean sphere. And during that time, I had to hose up and move the drum over and all of that so that I could actually step into the clean sphere. And it was a very uncomfortable process for me, especially given my size. They had one suit, which was a female's suit, for me to get into, a moon suit. And when they put the locking ring down on the top of me, it was a little bit too short.
Yeah.
So it caused indentations, impressions on the top of my head, which was extremely uncomfortable.
And you had to suit up because J-rod requires a different atmosphere than we
It was under different partial pressure and a higher partial pressure of hydrogen, around 4% hydrogen.
Was that the only variance?
Slightly less oxygen.
Okay.
And a higher general partial pressure of all of the elements in the mixture.
Okay. And I'm looking, is there a tail we see in the background, or is that a hand?
No, that was just my interpretation of his finger there touching on the glass. He used to mess with me. It was difficult remembering the protocols where I was supposed to use the pin system to remove the tissue samples from him. A painful process for him and for me. He was entrained at the time with me, and I actually felt, when I put the needle into his arm, I felt the pain in my arm.
You were in constant and immediate telepathic communication with J-rod as soon as you walked into the room?
Well, as soon as I was on the floor. After about 30 feet, I couldn't feel the thumping anymore. It kind of felt like a popping, kind of like you may feel with a rangefinder of a camera. And after the popping, if you would look in his eyes, you'd literally feel yourself falling into his eyes. And then he, after entrainment, this is how they get you to relax in your bedrooms at night. The rogues, if they take you. They entrain to what makes you feel good, and then they flood you with endorphins.
Are you saying that's
why you feel relaxed?
That's what happens during an abduction?
Yes, that's why you feel relaxed. He started to flood me naturally because he wanted to speak with me. So it began to naturally flood as I was speaking with him, and he felt me resist because I was told in the training to resist. And so he eventually stopped it. This is as the relationship progressed. He stopped trying to make me feel good. That had consequences too. The consequences for me not feeling good was that I was under incredible fear in his presence then. As good as, it's nothing you can explain, as good as you feel about helping someone like that, as much as I know that he was at least some kind of human being, there was something not right about him being here now. And it's something that goes to your core. I mean, I'm sitting here looking at the picture now, and it's disenchanting. It goes to your core of what you feel you should never be in the presence of.